Hello friends, it's SecretDoorGaming. I'm playing a visual novel called Beyond Tradition. And it's Japanese themed, as you can tell, which I love anything from Japan. And I had to play this game, and it's about a young girl who, our family tradition is having to feed this so-called monster to keep their village safe and their family safe. But is the monster really truly a monster? So yeah, let's dive right into the game and check it out. I just want to up the volume of the music and just let you hear the music. It's so soothing. It's really quite nice. It's quite lovely actually. And I like almost the watercolor illustrations of the background. I think this is going to be a really special game. Let's turn down the volume. Right, just a little bit so you can hear in the background. Hopefully you can't hear all the sounds of the traffic in the background. I actually think I'm going to shut the window. Just so we don't have background interruptions. Except maybe my cat. But that's okay. Oh, look at the illustrations. So cute. Cherry blossom, a little kimono. Manami? I'm hopefully sorry about the name translation. Papa, look at this. Father, what is this, a drawing? A torn piece of paper crumbled in the little girl's hands as she excitedly thrusted it towards her father. I drew him, Obake. Anima. I'm sorry if I'm not translating this right. Manama. The Obake isn't something that you should be drawing. It is a terrible, dangerous beast. Do I have to tell you the tale of the Obake again? Very cute little face. Young Kahoki. I don't know who that is. I told her it's dangerous, but she didn't listen to me. Maybe that's my friend. Come here, listen closely for the story of how your great-grandfather and grandmother protected us, built us a home in this foreign land, and taught us how to survive. It all started generations ago when our founders first moved here. The bustle of growing city life left no room for those who wanted to live close to nature. Where grass grew green, did the selfish villagers destroy it for their own sake? Vast landscapes were burned, animals uprooted from their homes, and nothing could stop them. Distraught from the broken harmony, your great-grandparents broke away to seek a home closer to nature, a way of life that didn't destroy their surroundings, instead gave it back. After weeks of walking, eating the foliage from bushes and drinking from the running rivers, they found a refuge in the mountains. It was perfect for them. Lot enough to build a shelter and close to running water. And trees everywhere? Yes, it was truly a sight to behold. As time passed, your great-grandparents built a home out of the trees, but they didn't take without giving and replanted, so there was never a patch of dirt with no life. Sounds like my kind of people. Gradually, more people found them and joined. They built their houses and chose to ditch the busy lifestyle, with a calm tranquility only coexisting with nature peacefully can offer. Our family wasn't just through blood. We bonded through hard work, countless events that drew us together. Though, unfortunately, it was hard. We had our passion and dignity, but no skill against the original inhabitants of the woods. The monsters? Yes, the monsters. Anima's eyes widened in awe while Kahuko looked around nervously. don't see Kahuko. Maybe that's the little boy. Though we scavenged for berries, tried to catch fish, nothing worked. We were lucky to not lose anyone in those days. It wasn't until... Oh, I'm just going to... Turn the music down. It always goes up at these, like, moments. Tried to catch fish. Nothing worked. We were lucky to not lose anyone in those days. It wasn't until an unlikely stranger appeared. Obake? In time, it gave us weapons to defend against the mindless creatures that wander with a ravenous appetite, and helped us build a wall, the same wall you scale behind my back. You knew? Haiku, did you tell him? No, I would never tell on you like that. Maybe that's another little girl? If you ever want to keep a secret from me, Manami, try not to use the community's worst liar to come up with an alibi. Now listen up. The Obake's actions may appear kind. That is far from the truth. It was a ploy to gain our people's trust. Its actions afterward are not worth your kindness. It destroyed our peace, just as the books of old have reminded us. It betrayed your grandfather, who had considered the Obake a friend. It uttered a curse and killed many of our people. That curse prevents us from killing him, and it prevents us from ever living in this forest safely. To leave these walls will cost you your life, especially since the curse stops me from making sure you never meet. You are a part of the head family, the Ishikawas, who the Obake cruelly betrayed. If it were ever to strike, it would come for you. No, I won't let it hurt, Nami. It will come eventually. That is why we lock him up. Oh, that's not nice. And why you must listen to me carefully. Your day will come when you will meet the Obake, Manami. And on that day, you must promise me you will perform your duties and not be deceived as our family was. Oh no. You know, sometimes monsters aren't what they seem. That you won't believe those fantasies in your head. Promise? Little girl felt somewhere deep in her heart that she couldn't tell the truth. For somewhere in her, she felt something was off. I would think that also. Something's just not right. A poor creature being imprisoned for that long doesn't seem right. Will she be able to walk up to the Obake and do as her father says? I promise, Papa. Don't worry, Nami. I'll protect you from the Obake. Okay. Though unconvinced, the little girl took her drawing and left the study, closing the door behind her quietly. The father remained lost in his thoughts, the warnings etched across time-worn books. I know you still don't believe me, but this is for your own good, Manami. You'll understand one day. For your sake, I hope so. Not a Japanese house, though, like old house, the way it looks in the background. Ooh, look at you. Aren't you pretty? Manami. I've dreaded this day ever since I was a little girl. At least that is what I told myself to say. In fact, I have waited my whole life for this. The trembling in my hands could barely be smothered in my sleeves. And here I am, on the fateful day I was supposed to feed the monster, locked up behind bars. Oh, poor monster. I'm gonna let you out. Disobey my father, let the poor monster out. Watch as he devours the village. Monster? Why did my heart still sink at that word? Shouldn't I, after many years, finally believe my father and Kahuku? I told myself that when the day came, my heart would decide, but it just couldn't settle. I should be scared. I should be terrified. But my heart isn't racing out of fear. I want to finally meet him. I've heard stories about him all my life, so it'd only be natural to be curious about him, right? To see if he really is as terrible as the stories make him out to be. The stories might all be true, but they also might not be. She's got a kind heart, too. I'm not sure which I should be more worried about, the stories being true, or living with this strange feeling built into my chest every time I think about him. I just needed to know. Nami! Oh, I should say like in a man's voice. How are you holding up? Oh, I'm fine. I've always known this day would come. Papa has prepared me for it. Nami. His lips pursued, eyebrows drawing together in silence before he looked at me. I know this must be nerve-wracking since you've always, felt sympathy for the Obake. But everyone is nervous when first meeting him. You don't have to hide it if you are. Don't be afraid to lean on me for support. I'll always make sure that you're safe. You know that, right? Haku. You're right. It's just the anticipation. It'll wear off soon, though I highly doubt he'll hurt me. Maybe you don't say that too loud. Oh, you're right. Quick. Act casual. Papa is coming. From the corner of my eye, Papa approached with the Obake's food sealed inside a burlap sack. It reeked of musty floorboards, making me turn away. The Obake must be starving, receiving food as bad as this every week. Oh, poor thing. You're feeding it like musty things that smell like floorboards? Oh, now I feel even more sorry for the poor little thing, poor creature. I swallowed the question caught in my throat. Would you eat this yourself? So why is he eating it? Enemy? I'm starting to think the villagers are more the monsters, or her father, than the beast itself. Yes, Papa, is that the food I'll be giving? Yes, please be careful with it. I don't think I have to remind you of the repercussions. Oh, and Manami? Yes, Papa? He took a step closer, lowering his voice with his chin dipping to his chest. You can back out any time. But Papa, you know I've always dreamed. Crap, Papa would lock me up if he knew that I anticipated this day. Look terrified. Dreamed of this day never happening, but oh well, you'll never grow if you don't face adversity, right? I really must get going, Papa. His drooping shoulders and solemn expression almost made my smile waver. I didn't want to lie to him, but every time I struggled to find the right words, they died at the tip of my tongue. He wasn't a bad father. But if I told him the truth, he would never trust me to leave the village. Take care then, Nami. I'll make sure Mr. Ashikawa isn't too paranoid in your absence. I'm not paranoid, I'm just concerned, as all parents should be. Now if you have time to make fun of me, you have time to leave. I turn away from Kahuku and my father to face the gates out of the village. As a little kid, those gates were the one unstoppable force preventing me from leaving. Now they look like average gates, just one push away from the outside. The villagers whispered around me, spreading like wildfire to everyone within earshot. That's Ishikawa's daughter? Is it her time, finally? Is it safe for her to go? She never feared that Baki. I'm worried. What if she lets him go free? Wait, Nami! Before I make it out of the village, Kahuko comes running up beside me and placed his hand on my shoulder. He pushed a small bag into my hands, making sure that it was sealed. Remember, the Baki is dangerous. This isn't something like your drawings or the dreams you've had. All the stories mention how deceiving the Obake is, how it made your family believe it was their friend. I know that you can get tricked pretty easily. Hey, that's not true at all. It's not a bad thing. It means your heart is open. I like that about you. Just don't leave your heart too vulnerable, okay? Never forgive myself if something happened to you. Oh, he likes her. Please, come back safe. I grabbed his hand from my shoulder, holding it between us. Don't worry, Haku. I wouldn't want to leave you behind for the world. You would get incredibly bored without me. I placed my other hand on top of his and smiled the best I can. My heart raced knowing I was just a few steps away from outside in the Obake. I'll see you later, okay? Make sure Papa doesn't stay awake for too long. The day was finally here, the day I would meet the monster who everyone feared, the one who I've wondered so long about. The Obake. You think she'll do it? I'm not confident. She actually went to bed early last night to wake up faster. Silence lingered between them as they watched her run into the forest, waving at them. Maybe I'll trust her. If she cannot do it, then you will go after her. I've trained you enough to do so. I understand, but what if she actually releases it? I expect her to maybe talk to it, but if the Obake is released... If she does, then we will have to kill it. Aww. Poor Obake. But you said the Obake can't be killed. After hours of walking the longer scenic route, taking plenty of stops to observe nature, I had managed to arrive around nighttime. A little later than I was supposed to, but who wouldn't stop and watch the birds flock together, or ants working as a colony after spending all your life kept inside? My hand rested on my rumbling stomach, drooling at the delicious lunch Kohuku prepared for me to eat once I arrived. There was nothing like some tuna-filled rice balls couldn't fix, especially after all this walking. I would feed it to the Obake. I'd give him my lunch, poor thing. I could be home by tomorrow morning if I walked home through the night, but Papa forbade me from doing so, saying the monsters were more active at night. So where is she supposed to stay then? I guess there's a little place for her to stay there, I guess. Now then, will you be like Obake? Are you really something I should fear? It wasn't as if the forest would answer. It was up to me to ask and figure it out. If the Obake ended up like the stories say, some cruel, emotionless monster with a millennial-old hatred for me. I shook my thoughts away. This was no time for negativity, not when I was so close to finding the answers. I know you won't be like they say, it just feels wrong. You believe me, right, nature? She's so sweet. It's like me, I like to talk to the trees. Not that they would answer, but I would talk to the trees and the animals and flowers. A strong breeze pulled me forward like eager children excited to show their parents something. I laughed, displaying a wide grin and picking up the pace to catch up with the breeze. I'll take that as a yes. Now onward! Oh, the poor thing. It's in like a box. By the time I arrived, the sun descended and the moon illuminated the forest in a silvery gleam. No more birds sang, and the only sound came from the grass crunching beneath my sandals. In the distance, an abandoned house hid behind the trees in a small clearing. Nature overtook it with weeds growing through tiny cracks and the paint flecking off into the wind. There was one small door, too small for any animal to go through, but big enough for food, which swung in its hinges with every small breeze. Oh, that's terrible. Papa's instructions repeated as I approached, the sudden crack of stray branches beneath my sandals making tiny pinprick sensations scatter across my neck and arms. When you walk north of the village, you will find an abandoned pavilion next to a running creek. That is where the Obake is. The abandoned pavilion looked like it had seen better years. A moldy scent wafted from the small openings that made my nose itch. How could anyone live here? Oh, I can't even have a bath, can't even see the sun. Poor creature. Villagers now seem more like monsters. If the Obake truly stayed here, couldn't he just tear the walls down? They looked decayed beyond repair, nothing a man who beat 100 men couldn't take care of. What stopped him from pouncing through those flimsy walls and attacking me? Becoming rigid, I clutched the burlap sack closer. There wasn't any sign of life inside. Was he waiting for the perfect moment to strike, or was he dead? The Obake, he should still be in there. Would he try to bite my hands off, or would he wait for me to bring the food and then slip beneath the door and kill me? Why was it that only now did those thoughts begin to appear? Despite my mouth growing dry at the thoughts, I took a deep breath until the thoughts drifted away and I leaped down a calm river. How is she going to get home if it's nighttime? Where is she going to stay? Just hand the food over and ask your question. That is all I have to do. Just a simple thrust and then I'll ask. That if any words could leave my mouth. Here goes nothing. I quickly dropped to my knees, squeezing my eyes shut and shoving the burlap sack aside. When I opened my eyes to look through the teeny door, I lost my next breath. Inside was a dark-haired man around my age. His long hair spread across the concrete beneath him. With every faint breath, his chest rose and fell, subtle enough that I sooner believed he was dead. From afar, he looked fast asleep, but as my curious gaze lingered, the shadows under his eyes were exposed, and his cheeks were sunken. His outfit was in tatters and rags. Aww. Who could do this? His eyes suddenly shoot open, dark holes penetrating mine and making me fall backwards. Did he see me? I leaned forward towards the door and lifted it again only for a chill to crawl up my spine. Furs sprouted all over the man's body, slowly covering every inch of his skin with thick black strands. His hands, tucked close to his chest, broke and became mangled, with claws popping out where his nails should have been. The dark, brooding gaze that met mine dilated and transformed into yellow irises. I barely covered my eyes as his body contorted into the shape of an animal, his ears becoming pointed and snout forming where his face should have been. When my hands moved away, instead of a human man laying on the floor was a gigantic wolf, its eyes closed as if the transformation took all his energy. What was that? I knew I saw a man, but did he really become a wolf? I knew the Obake was supernatural, but it still surprised me to see this so soon. I mean, it was one thing to believe in supernatural stuff, but to see it, I didn't know what to think. My hands were shaking, grabbing the burlap sack and untying the ropes looping it. Why were they shaking? The burlap sack slid from my lap into the doorway, propping it open. I gave it a quick shove before pulling my hands away. For a moment there was no sound, just the beating of my heart and the wind blowing around me. Then the sound of something heavy dragged across the floor. Poor thing. I peeked under the tiny doorway to see the wolf dragging the burlap sack towards the middle of the room. He gnawed on the food, devouring the scraps. There was barely anything to really keep you full. That's so heartless. Everything was gone before I could search for more food. He prodded the burlap sack with his nose, ears folded back, letting out a whine. I could only give him a pained glance, wishing I could offer more. Give him your lunch, lady. Then our eyes met, and I quickly pulled my head away, covering my face. Wait, Manami, ask your question. But could he even talk? Or maybe you did give him your lunch. I know he was a man before this transformation, but what if he couldn't speak? It was now or never, and I wasn't going to give up after getting this far. Er, hello, Mr. Obake, sir? The wolf didn't look my way. Instead, he turned his head and plopped down with his tail thumping the ground. I just have a question. It'll be quick. I don't want to keep you for too long. Like, where is he gonna go? He's got nowhere to go. He's got all time in the world, poor thing. It's just, I've waited all my life for this moment, and, I promise, I won't bug you any longer. He didn't reply. I waited patiently for him to turn my way, but instead no response came. Maybe he didn't like me. Of course he doesn't like you. Did I already make a bad impression, or maybe I was missing a valuable step in earning his trust? It's okay if you want to answer yet. I'll just wait here. I stood up and leaned against the pavilion, just as an idea popped up. Here, have my tuna-filled rice balls. It should taste better than what they've been giving you. I kneeled again by the mini door and slid the small bag inside with the lid taken off, stealing just one to enjoy myself. I didn't wait to see if he would eat it before standing up. The soft paw stepped told me he was starving enough to eat from a stranger's hands. After that snack would be the perfect time to ask. He must be starved. It wasn't like I could head home now anymore, not until the sun came up. Tomorrow morning, I know I will have the answer before heading home. The next morning came with a rude cramp telling me I probably should have kept some food for the next day. No, you don't need it. You can survive and you'll get more. The poor Obake is like starving. Dang it, I should have remembered how hungry I feel waking up. Sleeping came surprisingly easily outdoors. Maybe Kohaku and me with our childhood adventures hiding in tree branches and napping helped out. The ground was just a softer version of a thick branch. After rubbing my eyes and dusting the grim off my clothes, I crawled towards the mini door to see if he would be able to talk. I quietly looked inside to see the wolf still facing away, his tail sweep the floor every few minutes. Was he awake? Maybe he doesn't speak, or maybe he was just socially awkward. Excuse me, Mr. Obake, sir. I hope you enjoyed the extra lunch. I know it isn't a lot, but it must be tasty compared to before. Silence, not even a flicker of his ear. Could he really have already hated me? It took everything in me to not believe these stories. How he was destined to hate me even if we were strangers. Just then a low growl came from inside. It sounded too deep to be him, so it must have been his stomach. I can't bring you any more food. I ate the last one. To be honest with you, I'm kind of hungry as well. Oh, you silly girl. To even talk to him about hunger, and he is like literally starving. You stupid girl. Why are these some of these characters like so silly and stupid? Like the last visual novel I did, like the main like she was an airhead kind of. At least she says, "I'm sorry, I wish I could offer you more food." I didn't know what else to say. I had dreamt upon finally meeting that he'd be eager to talk to anyone considering his isolation. But he didn't even look at me as if he was so terrifying. Wouldn't he at least threaten me or shake me up? He probably doesn't have the energy, the poor thing. He looked beastly, that's true, but he wasn't acting aggressively or violently. He's not acting like anything at all. He didn't seem terrifying, just lonely. I sighed, feeling the early rising sun embrace me with warmth. It would be time to leave soon, that is, if I wanted to make it exactly on time. There must be something I could do, more food to offer him. What about... I ruffled through my bag, praying that there was still a tuna-filled rice ball smashed somewhere inside. Anything would do. Feeling around the bottom, my hands brushed against something hard. I eagerly pulled it out to see a bento box with some cooked vegetables and rice. It was still warm in my fingers. I hugged the bento box close. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Kahuko. He knew I would try to eat everything at night, so he hid the last bit of food beneath everything. Sometimes I wondered if he knew more about me than I did. He devoured the tuna rice balls last night, so maybe vegetables wouldn't deter him. My chest bumped into the ground, too excited to check the distance between my head and the ground. Here, I found some more food, actually. Now you won't have to starve anymore. Consider it breakfast. It's right around that time to eat anyway. I slid the bento box beneath the mini door and waited for the sound of paw steps. After a few seconds, the floor creaked and I heard eating. I pushed the mini door open a hint and saw the wolf with his head down licking up the meal. Surprisingly, he didn't eat like an animal. Maybe his human side influenced it. Wait, this is a perfect time to ask. Hi, so I don't want to interrupt your eating, but I really wanted to ask you something. It's about the tale of the Obake, which is you, actually. I just wanted something answered. The books are too old and miss out on a lot of information. You know how books are. This was more awkward than I pictured. Just spit it out, Manami. I kind of pieced it together all these years, you know. Something just didn't feel right. You don't feel like a bad guy. Of course, I haven't really met a bad guy before. Our village is full of nice people, but you just don't give me that feeling. I clasped my hand to my heart, taking a deep breath with my face squished against the dirt. Are the stories true? Did you do nothing but harm us? Pages were ripped out and some disintegrated, but the way the story goes doesn't fit. You supposedly betrayed our trust, but nothing led up to it. You just woke up one day and then decided to hurt us. There has to be more. After all, based on last night, you can't be that bad. You didn't try to eat me, harm me, or convince me to come inside to kill me. Also, you didn't try to harass me or anything like that. If you were bound and unable to hurt me, you could at least leave some harsh words and jumble my brain. But you didn't. So please tell me, did you truly want to betray us that day? The wolf paused from eating, his dark eyes glazed over the wall before meeting mine. My mouth went dry as I gripped my kimono tighter. Then he turned his head and padded away, seating himself towards the furthest wall with his tail curled around him. Now that I saw him sit up, he was bigger than any wolf I've heard of. He was as big as the horses back at home. His shoulders slouched, snout bowed to his chest. Was he really avoiding the question, or was he scared? Wanting to give him some privacy, I crawled away just as my stomach growled. I should have stolen a tiny piece. How did I only remember these things afterward? Maybe I should just head home. This wasn't working at all. What was I thinking? He would magically answer everything as if he was the one waiting for me? I should at least tell him goodbye. Hey, Mr. Obake, sir, I'm leaving. I'm sorry for bothering you about questions about the food. I'm going to ask if more can be brought to you. No one deserves to be rotting away alone, but the least I can do is make sure you aren't starving. So bye, sir. I gathered my things and picked myself up off the ground. If I wanted to get home in time for lunch, I'd have to leave now. I cast one last look behind my shoulder at the abandoned pavilion, as if a part of me stalled, wanting to give him one last chance to talk. But he didn't. My stomach growled again and I held my palm to it, balling my kimono in a fist. Hours of walking without any food. Maybe if I passed out on the path, Gohoku would come and find me. Did not wish to betray your kind. It was them who betrayed me. A low voice came from the abandoned pavilion, making my heart fly to my throat. Before I could change my mind, I fell to my knees in front of the mini door, looking inside. He now stared blankly at me, his head cocked to the side and his tail flickering back and forth. You did? He had turned in one ball of a moment, pouncing at the door and making me fall back. Now my heart was racing even more. I knew I shouldn't trust him so quickly, but I believed in this idea for so long that hearing it, confirmed from the very person involved, made my heart aflutter. But what did he mean by them? He actually talked to me. He must trust me a little by now, right? If what he said was really true, then I didn't know if I could walk home the same as I left. Why isn't she back yet? She should have been home by now, even if she took breaks. It's lunchtime. She's never late for food. Oh, look, he's looking so scared. Relax, Kouku. While she is a little lost in her dreams, she is still strong. If anyone here could survive out there, it is her. Shouldn't I make sure? What if the Obake managed to convince her to go inside the pavilion and eat her? Manami is free spirit, but she isn't foolish enough to walk into the den of a beast. I know that she isn't foolish, but to her, that isn't a beast. I did not raise Manami to keep lies from me. I trust her to come home soon and not be held back by any winds. Mr. Ishikawa, return to your duties. I will not hear any more nonsense from you, Kahuko. I know you are concerned for her sake, but we both know Manami is a lover of nature. She must have taken a long way home to enjoy looking around. That's true, but if she doesn't show up soon, I will go after her. I made a promise to protect her, and out there is nothing I can't take down to do so. Very well. Enemy, please come home soon. Father does love her. Come on, dang it! The fish squirmed from my grip and swam up the current along with his buddies. Oh, I'm trying to catch fish to feed to... Aww. This was the 5th fish to make fun of me. I won't have enough food for the both of us if I don't find something soon. Think, Manami, think. Then I paused, reality sinking around me. Even if I do catch it, I don't really know how to cook it besides heating it up. And where would I start a fire? I should have thought this through. I fell back on my knees and sighed, holding my wet hands out to dry them while thinking of a better plan. I may not know anything about catching fish, but I do know something about... In the corner of her eye, some glittering berries shone in the sunlight. Berries! Without waiting for my hands to dry, I scrambled to my feet, kicking off the sandals, and began examining the berries on the closest bush. If I remember the rules, avoid anything with spikes, bitter smells, or milky sap. And white and yellow, kill a fellow. Purple and blue are good for you. I carefully pulled the bush apart to find some purple berries. They didn't look harmful, but it was better to check than risk having to go home with poisoning. Okay, try and kill me, berry. I plucked one berry and squashed it, letting the juices drip onto my skin. It would be 20 minutes before I tried to eat one, but this confirmed if I would drop dead or not. By the time 20 minutes passed and no irritation came, I knew these berries were okay. I began picking and dropping them into the burlap sack to feed the Obake as well. By the time I was done, I counted over 50 berries. It would be a small lunch, but any size lunch is better than starving. Mr. Obake, sir, I brought some berries. I made sure they weren't poisonous. Maybe you can build up your strength with these. I dragged the burlap sack towards the abandoned pavilion, grabbing a fistful of berries and shoving them into my mouth. The rest of the bag went beneath the door. Have as much as you want. Oh, I already tested the poison. They are fine, but here, I'll eat one too to prove it. I popped a berry into my mouth and covered my mouth. The bitterness made my mouth pinch, but it didn't taste as good as I thought, but it was food. It tastes great. I can eat a whole bag of these. Liar. Even lying about it was pretty difficult. I had to distract myself while chewing to avoid spitting it out. Inside the pavilion, the sound of dragging curd with claw sounds scraping the floor. How did he trust me that fast? Either way, cheers to not dying from berry poisoning. This is a cute game. Another day passed, and I still couldn't catch a single fish. The berries barely filled me like full meals did. Just like staying with him? I guess it was too much to expect my hunting skills to improve overnight. It's been hours since I've kneeled in the water and I was still wringing the ends of my kimono. How the fishermen back at home did this, I would never know. I let out another sigh of defeat and laid a hand over my rumbling stomach. So hungry. Well, maybe you should go back to the village. Maybe I should... Wait. My head jerked towards the pavilion. Falling onto all fours, I crawled toward the tiny doorway, barely able to contain my excitement. Holding open the door, I gasped and covered my smile that was beginning to grow ear to ear. Oh, look at you. He was back to his human form again like their first meeting, except he looked much healthier than before. The food was already helping him get his strength back. Thank you, nature. My face flooded with heat after realizing I was staring for too long, but his annoyed expression snapped back into reality, making my chest tighten. Mr. Obake, did you say something? Yeah, I said that even a rock could hunt better than you. For a moment, I just stared agap, caught off guard at the sudden brashness. Although, that would be an insult to the rock. What the? Did he? Hey, at least I'm trying. If you know how to actually hunt, then you should help me, not complain about it. That wasn't what I expected, but at least he's finally talking to me. He shot me another irritated look. Fine, let me out and I'll show you. He said it almost mockingly, as if he knew that leaving wasn't at all a possibility. The reality of his words hit like a rock as I stood. Could I? No. The look on Papa's face, he would be devastated, especially Kahuku. He would feel partially to blame for letting me think like I did. It was an unspoken rule to not release the Obake. After all, everyone was taught he was the culprit for killing all of our ancestors. If Kahoku was here, he would beg me to realize this was a mistake. The worst mistake ever, even. But what if they were wrong? They hadn't even seen him. If he wanted to harm me, he would have somehow. He isn't, yeah, but I think the pavilion's cursed. That's why he can't leave. He isn't a monster. The door to open the enclosure was on the other side, overgrown with plants and so rusted that I wasn't even sure if it could be opened. How many decades has it been since it was? My heart raced as I walked around and fiddled with the latch on the door. It took quite a bit of effort, not to mention the shaking hands, which was making the task even more difficult. Finally, the latch broke from its lock. Oh my goodness. You were actually going to let him out? I pulled the door with all my might and it began to budge. Why do I feel like this is a bad idea? Please forgive me, Papa. Don't believe that he is a beast. I trust him. I don't know. This might be what I'm doing. I let out a deep, there's no choices to this game, it seems. I let out a deep breath, and with the door wide enough to let him out, I looked over at him again. Even he looked surprised at the decision. He didn't move for a moment, forcing me to stand there nervously. Well, let's get to it then. Come on, I'll show you where I saw the fish. Smiling brightly at him, I struggled to decode his expression. But after failing to do so, I headed towards the river where I saw the school of fish. And after a moment of hesitation, he followed, trailing just a few steps behind. My heart feels as if it's going to break out of my ribcage. Still, I didn't feel unsafe. I can't believe this is really happening. How are you so good at this? You caught so many. Look at her eyes. So cute. After seeing a man transform into a wolf and back, you're only surprised about my fishing skills. Well, it wasn't like it surprised me. If you are human, like me. Oops, sorry, it's her voice now. Well, it wasn't like it surprised me. If you were human like me, then you wouldn't be in there for as long as the stories say. So I kind of assumed. The Obake blinked back in shock, letting a fish squirm out of his hands and back into the river. Then he chuckled and covered his mouth, stifling his laughter and looking away. So skinny, poor thing. Hey, what is so funny? It's like a yoki. You just remind me of someone just as weird and naive as you. His expression suddenly fell after saying that, focusing back on the river where he fell silent. It didn't look like I'd be able to ask him anything else. You don't need me anymore. I repaid the debt for the extra food. Now run back home when you're done. He rose from the riverside and returned to the pavilion, disappearing inside with the door closing behind him. What? You just released him, though. All I could do was stare and bite my lip. Did I remind him of someone awful? The fish squirmed in my hands, bringing me back to the task. No matter who that person was, I am going to make it up to him. He didn't have to teach me. He could have eaten me. But I don't understand why he just went right back into the pavilion. He's a good person inside. I just know it. After another few successful attempts at catching fish, I stacked them all in the burlap sack. Now there was just one thing left: to cook them. I peeked my head beneath the little door again to ask, Mr. Obake, sir. What do you want? I don't know how to cook these. Sorry if there's a siren, you guys can hear that. Silence registered between us before he broke eye contact and scowled. Idiot. He walked from around the back of the pavilion and grabbed the burlap sack. That wasn't very nice. Go sit somewhere and watch. I'm not showing you this again. Yes, Mr. Obake, sir. Stop calling me sir. It's NATO. He suddenly cut himself off, staring in shock. I couldn't believe it either. Can I? No. Okay, Mr. Obake, sir. It took a little bit before a fire was started. The Obake has rubbed some sticks together with a rock and had a fireplace built in seconds. All I did was watch and judge by smell. I may not know how to cook very well, but my nose could tell the difference between two cuts of meat from the same animal. It was night by the time the fish was ready to eat. I had got up to get some extra berries and make a deluxe meal. First he was disgusted, but eventually I snuck it in while his back was turned. I gave him whatever tools were on me to cook it properly. The foil Kohoku wrapped my food in was especially useful as the fish settled over the hot rocks. By the time I returned from gathering my last batch of berries, he was crouched over the fire using a stick to slide the cooked fish onto my empty bento. Don't burn your mouth on it. I'm not that naive. I settled on the ground near the fire to warm myself up. The fish smelled heavenly compared to eating only vegetables the last 2 days. He settled on the other side of the fire, already tearing into the fish with a ravenous hunger. When he noticed I was staring, he looked automatically annoyed. Think, Manami, casual conversation. So, you can be a wolf? That's cool. Can you run super fast? When all looked hopeless of him replying, he then sighed and nodded grudgingly. Yes. My eyes brightened as I leaned forward slightly, feeling the heat hit my face. Do you talk to animals like those story characters can? Of course not. They have their own language, and so do we. His voice was so irritated, I wondered if he was asked that a lot back then. What language do rabbits speak? Rabbits don't like to talk. All they do is thump their back paws and run off in a hurry. They're awful to have conversations with. And don't get me started on birds. Before I could realize it, he was leading the conversation. His expressions were so animated, I forgot that he wasn't just a normal person like me. Manami? What? Yes? Oh, I was listening. You're leaning too close to the fire. Really? I looked down to see a piece of my kimono caught between the hot rocks. My stomach flipped as I dropped my bento box and scrambled to my feet. Oh man, not again. He made a choking sound before bursting into laughter. Falling back on the ground, he held his sides as I ran towards the river, washing it off. Papa is going to be upset when he sees this. I'm not sure how you even got here from the village. For your information, I came down the scenic route and didn't get lost once. That's hard to believe. though a small smile surfaced, seeing him relax instantly. The tension before a race between us and as I stifled a giggle. Maybe I am a little clumsy. For the rest of the night, the conversations came easier. I guess when you've been locked up with no one to talk to for decades, even I was an interesting subject. After we ate and talked, I bundled up against the same tree as he returned inside the pavilion. Though he hesitated, he eventually disappeared inside, closing the door behind him. No matter, this was a good day regardless. It's like she's staying with him. My eyes cracked open to the sun's blazing heat cooking me. I rolled onto my back, dusting my kimono off. The charred piece had dissolved in the middle of the night into an ash puddle beneath. Mr. Obake, sir? Turning my side to check on him, the pavilion door was left open and no response came from him inside. A rush of adrenaline shot through me as I scrambled to my feet. Did he leave? Where was he? Wouldn't he reply when I called? I fell to my knees in front of the pavilion mini door to see it was completely empty. Why wasn't he there? What if Papa was right? Was that all a ploy, just as the story said? Girl, he didn't try to eat you. Let him leave. Let him escape. No, maybe I was too sleepy. Maybe he just left to get something. Should I have really let him out? Manami? I sharply turned to see him with a burlap sack full of more fish, his eyebrows furrowed with confusion. Oh, hey, sorry, I just saw a bug and got up really fast. Though I wasn't a good liar, he shrugged and settled the bag next to the put-out fire. I breathed a sigh of relief, though a heaviness clouded my chest. Why did I automatically assume the worst? I spent years convincing myself he wasn't bad, and here I am standing after a night with him here. He didn't eat me, attack me, or anything. So why did I think that he would? I don't know what you're staring at, but I think cooked fish is a lot more interesting. Broken from my thoughts, I forced a small smile and sighed. Maybe it would take a little more convincing, but I wouldn't let my thoughts bring me down. Today was another fun day waiting to be made. I should find out why he doesn't leave. A few more days passed with my sudden stay. Wonder why Kahuko hasn't come in, that's weird. I grew used to sleeping beneath the trees, watching the stars move and eating cooked fish and berries every day. It wasn't as extravagant as the meals back home, but he made it more interesting. His barriers were going down slowly, although I can still notice him hesitating. He isn't as defeated as our first meeting. Maybe tonight I could ask him another question. And he had to cover up for me that day, but of course Papa still found out. I was banned from climbing trees ever again. It isn't that hard to climb trees. Are you humans still struggling with that? It's not a struggle. I just have weak upper body strength. There is no way you're going to make it out here without climbing a couple trees. Don't tell me you want to teach me. You probably scare squirrels away with your weird climbing skills. I would be doing the forest a favor. Hey, Mr. Obake? What? Thanks for, being a good person. I saw a flush of red bloomed across his face before he covered it with his arm. Shut up. Don't be an idiot. You only met me for a few days. Speaking of that, why are you still here? Don't you have family back at the village along with this Kahuko guy? I don't know why, but I feel like there's something I need to see here. Or be. I'm not too sure. I think I'm sort of drawn to you. The first time I've heard of that. So, aren't you afraid that this is all just a ploy just to kill you? My heart sinks at the thought. A few days back, that same line entered my thoughts and hasn't disappeared since. But the need to be here overwhelmed those thoughts. You're a good person. I can tell from your actions. If you wanted to hurt me, you would have. I'm not exactly stupid. There isn't a lot of bad people in my village, but I've heard stories. Stories of how people would fight and hate others just for the sake of it. Stories of you and you betraying us. His expression fell after that statement. But I never believed in them. They didn't seem right. You've proven that here too by not hurting me. You're a good person. I can't explain why I know that. I just do. That's why I believe you can do something about those false stories. It says you placed a curse on us, something that has haunted my village for past generations. You can fix it, can't you? Manami, He looked away from me, biting his bottom lip. I can. What do you mean I can? You'll do it right? I can't. Why? I won't. He gathered his fish and brought it into the pavilion, leaving me sitting by the fire. Good night. The door slammed closed behind him as I stared in shock. What was I going to do now? Was he really a genuine person if he wouldn't get rid of the curse? Did we really mess up enough to scare him away forever? I finished eating the fish and huddled against the tree, trying not to think about it. My head rested on my chin as I watched the stars above. Well, we did lock him up for decades with little to eat. He isn't wrong to distrust us. We've tortured him all this time. Wouldn't I do the same if I was cast away and falsely labeled as a monster? I hope he'll forgive me tomorrow for assuming. He just wants to protect himself from us again. I should probably head home too. Papa must be worried sick. It felt like any sort of progress between us had disappeared the moment I dropped the question. I closed my eyes, pulling my knees closer to my chest, sending a prayer to anyone who would listen. Hopefully things work out tomorrow. Mr. Obake? The morning sunlight pooled into the pavilion and I could see he was already awake. I hope he still isn't mad about yesterday. He doesn't seem angry, but maybe aloof as he acknowledges my presence with a lazy side glance. I think I need to return home today. My father is probably worried about me and I'm afraid of what he'll do if... He scoffs. If he believes I've killed you. I wasn't going to say it like that, but anyways, I'm going to change his mind about you. Oh yeah? You think it's going to be that easy? Well, my father is set in his ways, but he can also be understanding. He needs to know the truth. Everyone does. Whatever. Do what you want. Just so you know, I'm still not lifting the curse. I understand. I'm not doing it to get you to lift the curse. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. Idiot. I'll be back soon. Don't worry. As I packed up my belongings and began on the path home, I heard a quiet comment from inside the pavilion. Stay safe. My smile grew. Maybe I hadn't broken anything between us after all. I will. The journey back felt quicker than the one leaving now that I didn't take the long route. The breeze was brisk and the sunlight cozy, and under any other circumstances, I would be able to enjoy walking on the beautiful day. However, every step brought a tightness in my throat. I can change Papa's mind. I know I can. I need to. I don't have a choice. Maybe if he came and saw the Obake himself, he would see that there's nothing to be afraid of. How could anyone look directly into the Baki's eyes and not see the human soul within them? My father has a forgiving heart. I should know, after all the times I've been caught doing something I shouldn't be. Papa, I hope this goes well. Eventually the gates of the village appeared in the distance, and just as I passed through them, two figures were already there waiting. Papa, Haku! They turned immediately at the sound of my voice, and their faces filled with relief. Both of them carried bags meant for travel on their backs. They were seconds away from going after me. Good thing I left when I did. Nami! Kahuku rushed over, pulling me in for a tight hug. The hug surprised me a bit, but I enjoyed the familiarity of it. I didn't feel homesick while I was with the Obake, but I can't help but to feel immediately comforted by being back at home. My father hugged me as well, a rare gesture for him. Welcome home. When I stepped away, I struggled to meet his eyes. No, Manami, you have to do this. I'm so happy you're back. You have no idea how worried I was. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you both worry. Why were you gone so long? I fumbled as I tried to come up with an excuse. Oh man, I really should have thought about this ahead of time. I was looking for my hairpin, you know, the one that looks like wisteria blossoms? I brought it with me for good luck, but I lost it. So did you find it? Oh, no, I didn't. So I need to head back soon to look for it more. I swallowed. Here goes nothing. Maybe I'll ask the Obake if he's seen it anywhere. Manami. The sternness in his voice made me shrink back. Too early, Manami, too early. Do not even joke about such things. He is a beast, not your friend. He let out a tired sigh. I was stopped before I could even mention Obake. He won't listen to me. How am I supposed to convince him if he won't even let me speak? Will you join us back at home? I shook my head. I needed time to catch up, come up with a better plan, away from his judgment. You should have a bath and change your clothes. Besides, after growing accustomed to sleeping outdoors, I would probably get back pain sleeping on anything too flat. No, I'd like to stay out here for now. Papa nodded, expressionless. I cannot force your decisions. I can only trust you to make the right ones. With that, he simply left, leaving behind an awkward atmosphere. Convincing him was going to be even more difficult than I thought. I have some fresh rice balls on me. Do you want one? It'll cheer you up. Did I look that pitiful? I didn't mean to show my disappointment too much in front of him. He was so worried for me. Sure, thank you, Haku. He smiled and rummaged through his bag, pulling out a bento identical to the one he gave me before. Looking at the rice ball, I couldn't help but to think about the Obake. It was the first thing that I gave him. My heart twinged at the thought of him in the pavilion alone right now. I could picture his face so clearly in my mind, along with his lonely eyes. I can't let him down. I blinked over at Kahuku as he placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. Nami, I know I can't understand what you're going through. It's a lot to take on your family's burden, plus I know how you feel about the Obake. It's harder on you than it was for those who had this obligation in the past. If there's anything I can do, please tell me. I think at this point I can't help but to do anything you ask me. What do you mean? Never mind. I started rambling. Actually, there is something you could help me with. Even before the words left my mouth, Kahuku pressed his lips together with an uneasy glance. Spend the day with Kahuko? Continue on with the story. What does that mean, even? The last few days came and went with a blur. The first night I snuck out. Oh, maybe if you spend it with Kahuko, that's the end of Obake, and you forget about him and just, end up with Kahuko. But if you choose that other option, then you become closer to Obake. Interesting. That was my first decision of this game so far. The first night I snuck out with Haku's help. I can't help but help innocent creatures in need, Just a drink of water. I nearly chickened out trying to bring some more food for the Obake. Eventually I adjusted to the darkness by bringing a light, and visiting the Obake became a routine. Kahuko was a massive help. He would tell Papa that he was with me outside the gate, and would vouch all the way until I showed up at night. His lies were definitely improving. Papa was only slightly suspicious. Oh, Kahuko's helping me now. I thought he was in love with you. I found a faster route thanks to the Abako, and now I was able to arrive before the morning sun and arrive home before dinner. The whole day I sat and talked with him, occasionally fishing and learning how to climb trees. It was really, really fun. I couldn't have asked for anything more. I wanted to eventually bring Kahuko with me, but he insisted on not meeting him, unable to forgive him due to the curse. So instead, every time I came home, we dedicated dinner time and afterwards hanging out. It was a little tiring giving all my time to two guys, but I didn't want to disappoint either of them. Kahuko deserved so much for helping me, and the Abaka couldn't spend any more time isolated. Bits and pieces of the real story were revealed in each visit. Maybe he believed he needed a bargain to keep me visiting, although the extra lessons in survival would have been plenty. According to him, the stories were accurate up to when the fire broke out. He was chased out and captured after being feared for his strength. I didn't blame my great-grandfather, but I didn't blame the Abaka either for refusing to lift the curse. It wasn't like I minded visiting, just wished the only time my father wasn't suspicious was on the feeding days. How could our ancestors do that, framing someone so helpful to us? If it weren't for him, we would still be living in the jungle. And taking all the credit for learning how to survive, how rude. There still wasn't any physical evidence to back him up. But something told me that he wasn't interested in a lie. What would it gain him? I wasn't a warrior who could enact revenge on the village. I could barely cook a fish until a few days ago. I trusted him and I continued to put my faith in him. On the way home late at night, Kahuko was waiting as usual by the large tree overhanging the wall. Haku, a bit chilly, isn't it? You're coming home later and later. How long are we going to keep this up? Just until I don't have to. Come on, let's get up this tree. I grabbed the lowest branch, ready to lift myself up just to feel Kahuko's hand on my shoulder. Haku, what is it? Nami, I can't do this anymore. His gaze left mine, turning away as I slid down the tree. Haku, this is wrong. I'm practically handing you over to that beast every day, begging for you to come home safe. It isn't good for me worrying this much. I haven't been able to think straight for days, and you're tired. We are spending less time together. Was he really that worried? Every night I returned, he was smiling. Had I been so absorbed with the Abaka that I hadn't noticed his stress? Ku, I'm so sorry. If I knew, I would have cut down on the time. I just want to make sure the Abaka gets attention too, you know. That's exactly what he wants you to do. Oh no, he's getting jealous. His eyes, they look scary. Ooh, jeez. I take a few steps back as he yelled, just for him to cover his mouth and look away, grimacing. Don't you see, Manami? He is trying to lure you away every night. He wants you to feel comfortable with him, become his best friend, and then he'll betray you just as he did the others. My hands balled into fists beside me. Well, couldn't the Abaki just leave? He can just leave, can't he? Or maybe he's tied in with the curse that he can't leave? How could he? He refuses to even visit the Obake and see his kind nature, yet he still insults him. He is nothing like that. You know if you came with me. You seriously think I don't want to come with you? Nami, come on. His voice grew desperate as he stepped closer, placing a hand to his chest. Every day I think about your safety. I know you're strong and I know you're okay, but I don't want to see you get crushed when this beast eventually drops you. I want to go with you, but your father trusts me with the village duties. I can't just drop everything and disappear with you. His expression was so pained that my hands shook. If only I had known. Haku. I throw my arms around him, squeezing my eyes shut. I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. I didn't want to worry you that much. I'll make it up to you. I'll get genuine proof that the Obake is nice. I'll spend less time with him, more time for us. I'll give him a few hours, and then come home early to help you around the village. His arms never wrapped around me, only hovering by his sides before he rubbed my head, breathing out a frustrated sigh. All I want is for you to be safe. You're going to have to make a choice someday, Nami. Oh. A village, your home, or a stranger you've only met for a week. He moved away from me, climbing up the tree, looking down at me. If the Obake really cared about you, then he would lift the curse. If forgiving your family in the village is so hard, how will he get over his hatred and be with you? In a swift motion, he leapt onto the wall, forcing me to climb behind him. By the time I was sitting on top of the wall, he disappeared into his house. Make a choice. How could I be pit between the two after the mistreatment of the Obake went through? I couldn't live knowing he would eventually die if he was lucky. But Haku, the village needed me here. I was the eldest daughter of the Ishikawa family. Eventually I would lead and protect this home. But I didn't want to. I never wanted to. Something about spending my entire life outside the village, traveling a nomadic lifestyle, always meeting new people and places. Was I doomed to be here, torn apart by my decisions? I kicked off the wall and walked home, hugging myself closely. Without Haku, the village felt a little emptier. Was this village always this empty without him? A week has passed since I first met him, the Obake. The argument with Haku left me hesitant to come back, but not wanting to place my own feelings above others, I decided to visit him later at night instead of the morning. I spent the whole day trying to make up to him. We spent all day folding laundry, playing with the village children, and watching the sun go down. Then I snuck out by myself to visit the Obake. When I got there, the Obake was already leaning against a pavilion, picking at his nails. As I appeared, his head shot up. Manami, where have you been? He cleared his throat, looking away. Should bring him some new clothes. Just a little surprised. You usually come around early. Did something happen? I didn't really realize that tears were falling until his expression fell. Manami, what happened? Did you trip on the way here? He was in front of me in seconds, gently placing his hands on my shoulders before pulling me in for a hug. Aww. The water race began not long after that. I messed up. I really did. We make mistakes all the time. It isn't anything to get sad over. My friend Kahuku, he was mad at me spending too much time here. He still doesn't believe me about you. We had a fight last night. He didn't act like we did today, but now I'm really, really confused. What am I supposed to do? I don't want to pick between meeting you and staying with the village. There was only silence as I cried into his chest. Was he stunned into silence, or so sickened by my lack of attention that he would toss me aside? I didn't want him to hate me too. I could barely come here knowing it bothered Kahuko. Don't have to visit often anymore. But I want to. I like hanging out with you. But I don't want to visit you in secret anymore. He pulled away from me and walked towards the logs where our fires were. After throwing some sticks together, the fire started. My energy sapped as he threw some newly caught fish over the fire, beckoning me closer. Sit down, just eat, then tell me everything. Then tell me what I can do about it. More tears streamed down my cheeks as I nodded timidly. Taking a seat in front of the fire, I recounted the argument while the fish cooked. By the time I was done, a grass-woven plate was in my lap with roasted fish. It was nerve-wracking how silent he was. He looked over at the still river as if deep in thought. Here is what we will do. You can visit me once a week like before. I can feed myself now that you let me out. Only visit me on the day you're supposed to feed me. Spend the rest of the day with your family. But aren't you going to be lonely? I don't need you coming down every night. One visit is enough. I need alone time too. I wiped my sore eyes, nodding softly. You sure? Yeah, you're already here though, so get some sleep. I'm not sending you home the way you're looking. I didn't know what to think. What did I look like? The only thing on my mind was curling up on the leaves beneath me with a full stomach. So I silently ate. There was no more conversation between us, but it felt like a decent-sized chunk of the burden lifted off me. I wouldn't be disappointing him if I came only once. It would convince Haku and Papa that I wasn't so desperate to see him anymore. Maybe things can go back to the way it was before. After eating, I curled up by the same tree and closed my eyes. Then I felt something soft over me, and I opened one eye to see the Obake walking inside the pavilion. The blanket felt sort of itchy, but as I ran my fingers across it, I realized it was leaves weaved together. Wow. This must have taken a long time. Did he? I choked back another sob. When did he think to do this? I fell asleep with a smile on my face and tear stains on my cheeks. Don't even bring a blanket with you, girl? Or bring the poor Obake some new clothes? Ever since that night, I've cut down my time visiting him. Papa was pleased, and Kahuko believed he finally got through to me. I was glad, even though I was spending less time with the Baki. That just made every visit more special to me. The Abaki was different. He didn't light up when I appeared, but I noticed that a smile crept its way whenever he spotted me. Or his tail would betray his emotions and flick side to side. It was adorable. At home, I would dedicate all my time to the village. Due to the drama with the Abaki and Kahuku, I forgot that I was still the future heir of the village, even though I would love to do anything but that. But maybe, just maybe, things were finally going to work out. If it truly comes to it, I would take care of my village and still be able to visit the Abaki. It was going so well already. What else could ruin this? There's also always drama. Huh? There was a crunch of leaves behind me as my eyes slowly opened to the dark forest. I stirred, tilting my head to the sky. The sound came to an abrupt stop before continuing, this time lighter and slower. Baki? Not yet awake, I slowly pulled myself upright and rubbed my eyes. Are you out there? Manami! Manami! The grogginess went away as two hands grabbed my shoulders. The shadowed figure in front of me slowly became clear. Haku! Then in front of me was Kahuko, who held a finger to his lips and gestured deeper into the woods. Follow me and be quiet. Confused, I crawled on all fours after him until we were a little ways from the pavilion. When we were out of sight, I rubbed my eyelids and yawned. Haku, what are you doing here? I caught off at the angry expression on his face. Oh no, look at his eyes. What are you doing, sleeping next to him? Haven't you listened to anything Mr. Ishikawa and I have said over the last few days? You're practically serving yourself to him. He isn't like that, Haku. I keep telling you he's okay. If he wanted to eat me, he would have. What if he was just waiting until I came so he could eat us both? You can't force your kind nature on everyone, Manamu. Not everyone is nice. I think this guy is he's too jealous. Way too jealous. Look at his eyes. Scary. I think he's the one I would be more afraid of than the oak, you know. But I'm not forcing it. I've gotten to know him better than the rest of you over the last week. He's not a bad. Then why won't he lift the curse? Too nice to eat you, but too evil to hold a generational grudge? Naku! I couldn't stand to see him spit on the Abaka's name. If only he would just meet him, then he'll know that everything was okay. Yeah, but you can't because he's like totally jealous. Please, Haku, meet him. I'll show you he's not bad. Nami, I really want to trust you. I've let you get away with things because I know that you'll be okay. You're strong, sweet, good-natured, but you aren't a fighter. This isn't someone you can just talk to. He's a monster, and you aren't strong enough for what he's capable of. Not a monster. We have to leave. I don't care about this curse anymore. As long as you're safe, I can feel okay. Kahuko held his hand out in the darkness, his expression covered in the darkness. But I can see the stress in his eyes. Please. I didn't know how to reply to that. Kahuko meant well, he really did. I couldn't ask for a better friend who cared so deeply about my safety. Promise he cares too much about your safety, girl. But he's controlling. I can't. The look of betrayal on his face made me look away, hugging my arms around me. Ooh, look at his eyes. There's something I have to do here. I don't know what, but it's been keeping me visiting. I wish I could explain it. I really do. I reach out to touch his hand just to find it trembling beneath mine. It's just. Ow! A single fierce, long drawn howl. Oh no, it's not ow, it's a oh! A single fierce, long drawn howl echoed into the woods as the bushes rustled behind me. Kahuko grabbed my wrist and pulled me to my feet and behind him. Aku, wait, it's just. Quiet, Manami. I fell quiet at his bark, shrinking behind him as the bushes pulled apart to reveal a large wolf. The Abakel's hung hackles rose, his muzzle curled back to exposed, pearl-white fangs with a growling growl rumbling his chest. Despite knowing he was kind, my heart raced at the sight. So this was how everyone else saw him? Just a drooling, barking monster with his tail lashing side to side and a treacherous nature? Kahuko grabbed his knife by his waist, swinging it towards the Obake. Stay back! You won't get near her anymore! I'll finally end this curse and all the suffering you've caused us! Aku, wait! The fear gripping my body broke as I jumped in front of the Obake, holding my arms out. Don't hurt him! He's just scared! Manami, get out of the way! No! Kahuko's face blinked in surprise as I narrowed my eyes. I dropped one arm to grab his hand with a knife in it. No! Turning my head, I met the dilated eyes of the Obake, whose growl grew. Transform! I won't let you guys fight each other! I maintained eye contact with the Obake until he eventually gave in. He transformed in a cloud of darkness into his human form, eyeing Kohaku. In front of me, Kohaku stared in stunned silence. Now please, you are both good people and I don't want you both to fight. So Kahoku, put your knife down. But Nami... Now... Kahuko stared at me until eventually his grip on the knife loosened and dropped at my feet. Okay. Oh no. If things pick up like this, even if I do leave, Kahuko would never leave the Obake alone. If he came all the way here, that means he didn't care about this curse anymore, which means the Obake was in danger. Think, Manami, think. I don't want to hurt Kahuko, but I don't want to hurt the Obake either. Poor Obake. Like, he's been through so much. I feel so sorry for him. Like, I think I will actually take the poor beast that's been tortured for decades. Haku, if I was under a curse, would I be able to say how rude he was to me when we first met? How he said rocks have better fishing skills than I do? That doesn't change anything. He could be making you say all that to lower my guard. I'll admit you've made her super happy, more happy than I believe I can make her myself. Ku, don't say that. I bit my tongue as Kahuko held a hand up, telling me to wait until he finished. But I can't let you be with her regardless, so I'll make a deal. I'm listening. I held my tongue, lowering my arms, blocking Kahuko's view of the Obake. This was going more peacefully than I expected. It was taking a lot out of Haku for sure to act this civil in front of his bane. If you want to leave, forget about this curse and everything, then go. I'll tell the village that you lifted the curse and that you're dead. Oh, and how will you convince them of that? According to the curse, only the eldest daughter of the Ishikawa family can visit you. Plus, they will be too busy being happy that you aren't threatening us to check. I'll erase the evidence and you can go. So Obake would leave? Part of me knew that this was for the better. This was no place for someone like him to live on meager rations. But I'd miss him. When I turned to see the Abake's expression, it was partially veiled in the darkness. What was going on in his head? The Abaki suddenly met my gaze in the darkness, his eyebrows raised. Wait, wanted me to make the decision? He'd really give up freedom if I asked? Okay, let's see. Tell the Abaki you'll be fine if he leaves. Tell Kahuko your true feelings. I know this is selfish. Tears were streaming down the sides of my face as I tried to rub them away. Aku, I don't want to go back to the village. Kahuko's stunned stare made me look away, shoulders slouching forward. I've never wanted to take Papa's role, nor stay in the village forever. I want to be outside the walls, visiting foreign lands, and I locked eyes with the Obake, who was equally surprised by my outburst. Meet new people. I turned back to Kahuko and grabbed his hands into mine, bowing my head and squeezing my eyes shut. I'm so sorry, Haku. I want to go with the Obake. Silence. Kahuko went silent, making every muscle in my body tense up. I couldn't let him leave, believing the Obake was still a criminal. He would round up the village warriors and kill him. I grit my teeth and took a few steps back. Haku, look, when I met the Obake, I didn't know how to fish and had to eat berries. When you cooked for me, he taught me how to fish. He saw that I didn't know how to climb trees properly without scraping my knees, thought that I'd be in danger and taught me how to climb the trees. When he thought he heard wild animals nearby, he stood on watch by the pavilion as I slept. When he noticed that I was losing touch with you and Papa, he forced me to visit him less. I don't know how I can convince you anymore that he's a good guy. I can't even explain it either. I just know. I bundled up my kimono in my hands, gritting my teeth more. So please, even if you can't trust him, trust me. There was still silence, and I worried that he took the outburst unkindly. I didn't mean to get upset at all. Oh no, what would I do if I made him upset? Then I heard a soft sigh, and Kahuko scratching behind his head with a wary look. You know I can't trust him, Nami. My heart sunk. But I can trust you. Really? You'll let me go with him? Yeah, if you really think you need to go. But only if you can reassure Mr. Ashikawa about it. I mean, what do you want to do with the Obake? Well, I want to clear his name. I ran towards the Obake, standing beside him with a determined look. If this village believes he's a bad guy, there will be others. My goal will be to clear his name by convincing everyone he isn't a monster. Even though he is a little scary. Not really. I'll reassure Papa, trust me. Leave a note. If I leave a note with him, then he'll know I'm okay. Or he'll believe I forged it. Oh. I'll hand deliver it and prove its authenticity. He'll believe it from me. Weren't you the one really bad at keeping secrets? I've improved. The two started bickering back and forth, causing me to giggle. Kahuko wouldn't let the Obake talk back if his guard was still up. He was slowly getting used to him. But still. ask Haku to come. Yeah. Why can't you come with us? The bickering came to an abrupt stop with both of them staring at me as if I went nuts. Seriously? You're still asking me to just disappear with him? I don't believe that's a good idea. I gave them my best begging look, clasping my hands together in front of me. They looked at each other, then me, and sighed. I'll go tell Mr. Ashikawa. This is going to be a bother. The journey home felt slow, with every step making my heart flutter. Maybe I'll just hide while Kahuko delivers the letter. No, I'll have to face him, plus I want to say goodbye. When we arrived at the village in the morning, Papa was waiting for us at the entrance. He was surprised to see both me and Kahuko together outside. Kahaku did most of the talking while I fiddled with my clothes. At the end, Mr. Ashikawa was left furious and saddened. Eventually, he accepted the note I hastily wrote on the way home. After that, he forced us to stay for a farewell party where Papa corrected the stories being told by our ancestors. Everyone realized their mistakes, and even though they were uncomfortable with the Obake, no one harbored bad feelings. Then we packed up and left in the only way I could, quickly and without focusing on saying goodbye. I was already choking up, but I knew my excitement would eventually take over. We met at the pavilion with the Obake, who finally introduced himself as Neto, and left for a new adventure, just the three of us. Aww. Wow, that's a good ending, folks. I got a good ending. Yay! Oh, what a sweet story. I really enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed that also. If you want to play this game and try the different other outcomes of the story, the download link is below for the full game. And yeah, I would. You couldn't really hear the music in the game, of course, but I would play this game just to listen to the music. It's really beautiful and serene. But this was a happy tale. I like that. If you like this playthrough, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel to support me so I can keep playing these different kind of games, these visual novels at Secret Door Gaming, and have a great evening. Thank you again.